Hi, this is your host Danny, and this is English Plus Podcast. Do you know the meaning of equator, era, forswear, infiltrate, irreversible, meteorological, penetrate, precise, synthetic, and thaw? Do you know these words? Do you want to learn the meaning of these words in context? Well, you're in for a treat because we're going to learn the meaning of these 10 new words in the context of a story about a hole in the sky. And we're talking about the ozone layer. So our story today is a little bit scientific, but it's very important and everybody should know about it. So if you're interested, join me in today's episode, Word Power, Hole in the Sky from English Plus Podcast. Welcome to a new episode from English Plus Podcast, where you get to learn English, business, culture, literature, and a lot more. Two things to remember: that you will always find extra practice on our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com, and don't forget to support us on Patreon to help us keep our content free forever. And now, this is your host, Danny, and let's enjoy a new episode from English Plus Podcast. So first, let's start with the story. As I told you, it's a little bit scientific. It talks about the atmosphere and the problems that we have in the atmosphere, especially the ozone layer. And then we will talk from this text. We will learn these 10 words: equator, era, forswear, infiltrate, irreversible, meteorological, penetrate, precise, synthetic, and thaw from the context of the story. And it is always important to learn the meaning of new words in context, not in a vacuum, because this way you will remember the words better when you remember the context. Sometimes you just remember the story and you remember the words. So without further ado, let's start with our story, and that is A Hole in the Sky. Millions of years ago, the Earth experienced a catastrophe that resulted in massive global cooling. Eventually, all the Earth's water froze. This era is known as the Ice Age. Scientists believe that a meteor struck the Earth with such force that it sent a great cloud of dust into the Earth's atmosphere, effectively blocking the sun's light and heat. This, in turn, caused the Earth's atmosphere to drop low enough to cause global freezing. After many years, the dust clears from the atmosphere. Once again, the sun's warmth was able to penetrate the clouds. The ice melted, except at the Earth's two poles, areas too far from the sun to experience temperatures high enough to cause thawing. The climate of the Earth is precisely balanced to support a variety of life forms that depend on a range of temperatures. These temperatures range from extremely cold at the poles to extremely hot near the center of the Earth at the equator. The layers of the Earth's atmosphere act as a filter to allow only as much sunlight as needed to maintain this balance. Unfortunately, the growth of fuel-burning industries and an increase in previously unknown synthetic compounds have altered this filter. The layer of the atmosphere that screens excessive sunlight is the ozone layer. Ozone is a compound made up of 3 oxygen molecules. It tends to break down when it is attacked by chlorine, a chemical released by the propellants in aerosol sprays and coolants in air conditioning units. Widespread use of aerosol sprays and air conditioning has already caused irreversible damage to the ozone layer. Over the South Pole, scientists have found a reduction in the amount of atmospheric ozone. The hole in the Earth's natural filter allows more sunlight to infiltrate the atmosphere. This, in turn, affects the global climate. The resulting warming is suspected to be the cause of numerous incidents, from the melting of the polar ice caps to an increase in tropical storms. These and other meteorological events all threaten to disturb the balance the Earth's climate must maintain. If this balance is disrupted, life forms all over the planet will be affected. Numerous scientific and environmental groups have asked that people forswear the use of aerosol sprays and certain coolants in the hopes of halting the dangerous loss of ozone in our atmosphere. So that was our story about the hole in the sky, which is the hole in the ozone layer, which everybody knows about, but maybe not all of you know exactly what's happening and what we can do to reduce the level of damage that is being caused every day. Now, as I said here, and as we will talk about it, the damage is unfortunately irreversible. We can't do anything about it. What's damage is damage, but what we can do now is limit and even stop the damage, because that is going to affect life on Earth as we know it. We might come to a day when life on Earth might be impossible. Don't want that, right? Maybe some people don't care today because they say this is not going to happen in the next 100 years. Maybe it's not going to happen in the next 100 years. Maybe it is. Who knows? But even if it's going to happen in 200 years or in 300 years, well, ask yourself this question: why are we here today? Why are we enjoying all these luxuries that we have nowadays? It is because of the effort of the people who lived before us. I'm not saying that people did this just because they like us or because they wanted to provide us with a better future. Maybe because these were commercial opportunities for them and they created all this stuff. But we should know that we are here today because of these people. Because these people did something that was not going to affect their lives, but it was going to affect the lives of posterity. And today we are this posterity. Let's think about posterity. Let's think about future generations for a second. Even if we're not going to be alive then, they might be remembering us for something good we did for them. Anyway, let's talk about the 10 words that I promised you I will talk about. And again, these words are era, penetrate, thaw, precise, equator, synthetic, irreversible, infiltrate, meteorological, and forswear. So let's talk about the very first word, and that word is era, E-R-A, era. Now in our story, what did we say? We were talking about this time when there was a massive global cooling, not global warming like we have today, it was a massive global cooling. And this era is known as the Ice Age. Now what do we mean by era? Now era is simply, we can refer to a period of history or a long period of time as an era. We want to draw attention to a particular feature or quality that it has. It is simply like we're saying an age, a time, a period, a stage in history. But because it is long, usually long, and very important, or because it has some special features like this era, we're talking about the Ice Age here. So we can call this an era. So this era, E-R-A, this is the meaning of it. And as I said before, it's easier to remember it in context because now when you want to remember the word era, you will remember Ice Age. And you will remember our story in general, and it will be easy for you to remember. But of course, if you want to make this word and the other 9 words that we will talk about permanent, you can go to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. The link is in the description. And it is not just a link to our website and you just go there and try to find something. No, it is a link to the custom post we created for this episode. The custom post has everything you need to practice, learn, review, and later you just come back to the post so that you can just remember what you learned. And in this post, we will have interactive activities, the text we use today, obviously, the word list, we have a PDF practice worksheet, and we have an interactive crossword puzzle, you name it. We have everything you need so that you can go practice and then come back later to review and then come back after maybe a week or 2 to remember the words you learn here today. You don't want to learn these words just today and just go on without reviewing them because trust me, you will forget them easily if you don't practice them. That being said, let's continue with our next word, and this word is penetrate. So the word penetrate, P-E-N-E-T-R-A-T-E. Now let's see how we used it in context. We said once again, the sun's warmth was able to penetrate the clouds. Now here we're talking about after the global freezing, after the Ice Age. Now this dust cloud that covered the atmosphere for many years cleared, and once again, the sun's warmth was able to penetrate the clouds. What is the meaning of penetrate? Now, if something or someone penetrates a physical object or an area, they succeed in getting into it or passing through it. So, penetrate is simply we're saying to enter or to go through, to pass through, to infiltrate, which is another word we're going to talk about in the context of our story today. But let's talk about penetrate first. So, this is the meaning of penetrate. We're talking about the sun before when there was this dust cloud, it could not penetrate the clouds. And because of that, it did not reach the surface of the earth, which made the surface of the earth very cold. The sun's warmth could not warm the surface of the earth, and that made the surface of the earth freeze. But when it was able to penetrate the clouds, when it was able to enter or to go through the clouds once again after this dust cleared from the atmosphere, the ice melted except for the poles. And now that brings us to our next word, and that is thaw. So, thaw, T-H-A-W. What does that mean? We're not going to talk about it in a vacuum, right? We're going to talk about it in context. So, let's take a look at how we used it in context. Now, we said after the sun's warmth was able to penetrate the clouds, the ice melted except at the Earth's two poles, areas too far from the sun to experience temperatures high enough to cause thawing. Now, what are we talking about here? The ice thawed. What does that mean? T-H-A-W. When ice, snow, or something else that is frozen thaws, it melts. So it is simply melt. But I will have to say that this word is a little bit more formal, and we use it in scientific context more than we use melt. But melt is fine, by the way. You can use melt if you want. But this word here, this new word that we need to learn is thaw, T-H-A-W. So thaw is like melt, dissolve, soften, or defrost, just like this feature that you have in your microwave ovens. That is the same like thaw. And now let's move to the next word, and that is precise.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Looking to enhance your English skills while exploring a world of knowledge? Then English Plus Podcast website is just for you. Dive into diverse topics ranging from science to literature, history to business, and myths to modern insights. Each episode from our podcast or article from our magazine is a journey of learning and discovery, designed to not only improve your language skills, but also broaden your understanding of the world. Join us at English Plus Podcast, where language meets limitless learning. Tune in today and take your English to the next level. Visit EnglishPlusPodcast.com to start your journey. English Plus Podcast, language, learning, enlightenment. Never stop learning with English Plus. So, precise, P-R-E-C-I-S-E. Remember, C-I-S-E, not S-I-C-E, okay? Because that's a common spelling mistake. So how did we use this word in our context? Now, we said the climate of the Earth is precisely balanced to support a variety of life forms that depend on a range of temperatures. Now, this balance is not just something that is random, or it can be anything, and no matter how hot or cold it gets, it's fine. The atmosphere of the Earth will figure it out. The Earth will figure it out, and we will be fine. No, it's not. This is not the truth. The climate of the Earth is precisely balanced. You can't change the balance. If you change the balance, some catastrophes are going to occur. Some disasters. It's not that simple, guys. You must know that, but if you don't, remember, the climate of the Earth is precisely balanced. So what does that mean, precisely balanced? When we talk about precise things, we're talking about exact or accurate in its details. We're talking about a very delicate balance, exact balance. And that is precisely balanced, just like we're saying exactly or specifically or particularly, etc. All right, that was a word. Now for our next word, and that is equator. Now, equator, E-Q-U-A-T-O-R. Now, in our story, we said these temperatures range from extremely cold at the poles to extremely hot near the center of the Earth at the equator. Now, the equator obviously is something that we use in geography, and maybe you've heard of it in geography lessons, maybe not, but let me remind you what this word means. When we talk about the equator, what is it? The equator is an imaginary line around the middle of the Earth at an equal distance from the North Pole and the South Pole. Obviously, this line does not exist physically. We cannot see it. We cannot just go there and look for the equator. Show me the equator. You can't see it. It's just an imaginary line, but we use it for calculations. We use it basically to divide the globe in half, to divide the Earth in two halves, the northern hemisphere and the southern hemisphere. That is because the Earth is like a sphere. So if you want to have a northern hemisphere and a southern hemisphere, you want to cut the sphere in half. And this half happens to be in the middle. And it's an imaginary line. What is this imaginary line? It's the equator. That's what we talk about. So that was the equator. Let's talk about our next word, synthetic. Now, synthetic, synthetic. How do we use that in the story? We said, unfortunately, the growth of fuel-burning industries and an increase in previously unknown synthetic compounds have altered this filter. We're talking here about this great filter that we have, the natural filter, which is the ozone layer. But remember, our word is synthetic. What are we talking about? Are we talking about natural compounds here? No, obviously not. When we talk about synthetic, like synthetic products, these are made from chemicals or artificial substances rather than from natural ones. These synthetic compounds. Now remember, in our story we talked about the propellants in aerosol sprays and air conditioning units. These are synthetic. These are not natural. So that is the meaning of synthetic. Of course, synthetic can be used for a lot of other things. If you want to talk about artificial material, manufactured, fake, man-made, you want to talk about these things, you can say synthetic in most cases. So that being said, let's move on to our next word, irreversible. So, irreversible, IRREVERSIBLE. Remember, IBLE, not ABLE, because that is a common spelling mistake. But let's see how we use it in our story. We said widespread use of aerosol sprays and air conditioning has already caused irreversible damage to the ozone layer. Irreversible. Something that you cannot change anymore. You cannot go back and fix it. That's what some people think. You may think, yeah, we were going to figure out some way to fix the ozone layer. Well, unfortunately, it's not that simple. If it is not impossible. I mean, I'm not going to say it's impossible because maybe someday they will figure out a way to fix the ozone layer, but personally, I don't think that is possible. And I agree with what we said here in the story. The damage is irreversible. What is the meaning of irreversible then? If a change is irreversible, things cannot be changed back to the way they were before. Irrevocable, incurable, final, can't change it. Irreversible damage, unfortunately. So this word is strong. You use it when you talk about something that you did, some mistakes. You know, in life, some mistakes are okay, and most mistakes are actually okay if you know where your mistake is and if you work on it. I mean, you can redeem yourself at any point in life, mostly. But let's face it, guys, some mistakes are irreversible because the damage we cause is irreversible, not because of the mistake itself, not because nobody can forgive us and we need to forgive ourselves and stuff like that. I'm not saying that's not true, but I'm saying it's not just only about the mistakes we make. It's about the damage we cause. Sometimes the damage we cause is irreversible. So how can you forgive us? That is a problem, and it's not that simple. We cannot just say we're going to forgive each other for damaging this ozone layer because the damage is irreversible, cannot be changed. It's final. That is our word, irreversible. So remember that word. This word is very strong, very useful. You can use it, but remember how strong it is before you use it. If you really want to talk about something that is this strong, go ahead and use irreversible. And now let's move on to our next word, infiltrate. Now, infiltrate is pretty much like penetrate with a slight difference. Now, here let's first see how we can spell it. INFILTRATE, infiltrate. Now, in the context of our story, we said this hole in the Earth's natural filter allows more sunlight to infiltrate the atmosphere. So, what do we mean by that? Now, obviously, infiltrate here simply means penetrate, just like the word penetrate we used before. To infiltrate is to move slowly into a substance, place, system, or organization. Now, that being said, I will have to also tell you what infiltrate is more commonly used for. We can definitely use it in this context we're talking about here, but usually we talk about people infiltrating places or organizations. We're talking about spycraft. If they infiltrate into this organization or this place, they enter it secretly in order to spy on or to influence it or something like that. That is to infiltrate. That is the more common meaning of infiltrate, or, like in this context, it simply means to penetrate. Just like we talked about penetrate before, we can say infiltrate. And that brings us to our next word, meteorological. Well, I will have to say this is a long word, meteorological. If you want to remember it, it starts with meteor. We're talking about meteor, and then logical, and then we have to link it in between. So meteorological. Meteorological. How do we spell that? It's meteorological. Meteorological. Now, how do we use that in the story? We said these and other meteorological events all threaten to disturb the balance the Earth's climate must maintain. So what's the meaning of meteorological? Well, meteorological is a big word, but the meaning is very simple. We're just talking about climate. Now, meteorological means relating to meteorology. What does that mean? It means the study of the processes in the Earth's atmosphere that cause particular weather. So we're talking about weather things or climatic things. That is meteorological. These are meteorological events. We can say weather events or climatic events. That's kind of the same thing, okay? But this is a bigger word, to be honest, and it is, of course, a more scientific word. So that is our word, and that brings us to our very last word for today, and that is forswear. So the last word for today, forswear, F-O-R-S-W-E-A-R, forswear. Now, in the context of our story, we said numerous scientific and environmental groups have asked that people forswear the use of aerosol sprays and certain coolants in the hopes of halting the dangerous loss of ozone in our atmosphere. What does that mean? What are these groups asking people to do? To forswear the use of aerosol. What does that mean? To support? To encourage? Not at all. If you forswear something, you promise that you will stop doing it, having it, or using it. So it's just like to reject it, forsake it, renounce it, forego, something like that. If you forswear the use of aerosol sprays, you promise you're not going to use that anymore because you know that is a bad thing to do. Like when you forswear smoking, for example, but this is a formal word, I have to say, because usually you can use promise or try to quit or something like that. But here it's not about quitting, it's about something else. Remember, you promise that you will stop doing it, you will stop having it, you will stop using it. And here we're talking about aerosol sprays and certain coolants. And with that being said, we've reached the end of our episode, and that is everything I wanted to share with you. Remember, we talked about these 10 words. Let me remind you again what these words were. We talked about equator, we talked about era, we talked about forswear, infiltrate, irreversible, meteorological, penetrate, precise, synthetic, and thaw. Remember these words, and again, if you want to practice, if you really want to add these words to your permanent vocabulary bank, this bank that you can use in your writing and speaking, not just you understand what you read or listen to, and that is a great thing, of course, but you would want to add these words to your active vocabulary bank, the vocabulary you use, not only the vocabulary you consume, all right? So if you want to do that, remember, we have a link in the description of this episode that will take you to our website, EnglishPlusPodcast.com. In the custom post we created for this episode, you will find everything you need to practice and master these words. We have interactive activities, a PDF downloadable worksheet, an interactive crossword puzzle, the words themselves, the text, you name it. Whatever you need, it's there. Just go there, take the link, and take your English with it to the next level. Now, that being said, let me thank you very much for listening to another episode from English Plus Podcast. This is your host, Danny. I will see you next time.